let's get started. I got a question for the audience first. Audience, how many of you out there are podcasters yourselves? Or recently podcasters?
Put your hand up, Joe.
Okay. So about half the audience claims to be podcasters or recently retired therefrom. So
There's another one walking in right now.
All ringers in the audience.
There she is.
All right, and somewhere up there, we should have the basic information about all our podcasts here. I asked a couple questions to kind of get them out of the way. How you run your podcasts, whether you have guests, or how you interact with people in the outside world, because we might have some people here who are not doing their own podcast who might want to appear on your podcast. So that's one of the questions there.
No.
And approximate number of podcasts you issue. So with that information taken care of, so we don't have to verbalize it, I want to go down the line here and ask you guys to answer for our audience, why should they listen to your podcast? Because there is 666,000 podcasts out there, not all about pinball, but there's 120 pinball ones anyway. But why should they listen to your podcast? Ron, you look like you're ready to answer. Why should they listen to Slam Till?
Good answer.
Good.
Good answer.
They're fun.
That's good.
Yes, good breadth of knowledge, I would say, in multiple areas. Bruce actually operates a location, the Silver Ball Saloon. We've all been collecting for a long time. We play in tournaments, work on our own games. So it covers a wide variety of subjects, and we try to be somewhat funny, so it is not incredibly boring. That's
Okay.
why I would say to listen to us.
Okay, Jeff?
I kind of started it because I've been broadcasting for 25 years, doing a lot of classic rock radio and also interviewing sports stars, things that are passion. Well, I fell in love with pinball, and I happened to be at the 2016 World Series in Chicago and in Cleveland. So when I'm in Chicago, I'm like, I'm here early. Let's go to Stern. And I got a factory tour, and Steve Ritchie was there, and at the time others, and I interviewed those people. And I thought, okay, because I know how to interview people, and I'm fascinated by anybody, really, if they've got a story to tell. So I thought, I'll just put this out and see, if it's pinball connected, and that's kind of how Pinball Profile was born. So the show is really not about any opinions I have. It's more about what's new in different parts of the world. It's not always about news. It's about collectors. It's about tournaments. It's about events like this, and I've been able to cover a wide spectrum. So it's a lot of fun for me. It's a little different.
Okay, and you're getting good feedback from listeners that you're providing something they want to listen to?
I keep getting requests to do a few of these, and
Great job interviewing.
thanks very much. Thanks a lot. How much do I?
Okay,
It'll be
Hold on a
$10.
second. What's your name? What's your name?
yeah.
I'm Canadian.
Yeah.
A social lubricant has appeared on
I'm
the table.
Canadian, so
Cups are up there, cups are up there.
Clearly, he found the store next door.
Yeah, not too hard to find a liquor store around here. Sarah,
you and me, bud.
why should people listen to your podcast?
Well, if you want to learn anything about pinball, I would suggest not listening to my podcast. These three gentlemen do a lot more with interviews and have a lot more pinball knowledge, but I kind of come at it from a women's perspective and from the perspective of a wife who has been dragged into the hobby, and here we are.
Okay, well, I should take this moment to commemorate that you are our first ever female presenter in the 5 years.
Whoa!
So
Thank
we
you
finally
so
got
much.
a woman who dared to come up and give a woman's perspective.
Oh, well, that's fantastic.
Okay.
No wonder Pinside Pity loves you.
And then there's that other Jeff who told me to call him the other Jeff because he always calls himself the other Jeff. Why should people listen to your pinball podcast?
Well, a lot like this, Jeff. I've been in radio for a little over 25 years, and people always told me, because we'd stand around at League or anytime we were playing pinball, and we would talk pinball as we're waiting for our turns, and said, you're a radio guy, why don't you do a podcast? I'm like, you know what, that actually could be fun, and decided to do it. And I kind of wanted to take a spin of, it's named the Pinball Players podcast because it pretty much focuses on just playing. I don't collect. I'm not looking for the scoop on the latest rumors that's happening at Stern. I'm talking about, hey, this is basically saying what we say at the tournaments, how we're talking about pinball amongst ourselves. Hey, did you see Willy Wonka? What do you think of that? What do you think of this as a tournament game? This sort of stuff. And I kind of gear it a little bit towards people that might be new to the hobby, too. I think people that are pinball aficionados might listen and say, boy, you're really over-explaining this. But I'm always thinking of when I'm doing the show, who am I talking to that might have just discovered pinball, doesn't know much about it, and would like to learn about it from a very simple starting ground? I think that's really where I aim it. So I honestly say why people should listen to me is if you're new to pinball, you might enjoy it, kind of like Mrs. Pin, how she crushes it.
Okay, so that's the part that they knew I was going to ask. From
All right,
now
see ya.
on,
Now, questions get harder from here, kids.
Yeah. So
I'm going to need a shot of that, Jeff.
I'm gonna trot out a question that is a cliche when we have a game designer here and transform it for you guys. Again, we'll go down the line. And they don't know what I'm about to ask.
Oh, boy.
Of all those 120 or 121 now pinball podcasts, what is your favorite other than your own? What podcast would you recommend or do you like to listen to yourself?
I'd say head-to-head.
Okay, head-to-head gets a vote. Jeff?
I listen to these three regularly. I do listen to Head to Head. I love when Christopher Franchi talks. Stephanie Gaida, who with Crystal does a fantastic job on Riptide. I would recommend all of those. There are a lot of great ones, and there are a lot of different variety too. Kaneda is extremely popular. He's controversial, but he's entertaining as heck. So a lot of people gravitate to that and get a kick out of that as well. There's a lot of different ones popping up. Do or Die. Raymond Davidson, the #1 player in the world, is talking about his tournaments, and he gives a little strategy too. Joe Lemaire is doing that now on Head to Head. Picking a game. Like they did a great one last week on Game of Thrones. I've been playing that game for years, didn't know things until Joe brought it up. So find one you like. Maybe it's a topic you like, maybe it's the host you like, but these three are fantastic.
Very definitive answer right there.
That was very concise too.
I get a shot.
My husband and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Is your husband in the room by any chance?
He happens to be
Couldn't
right
be
here.
closer unless he was at the table.
Stand up, please.
Yep, there's
Please
Dr.
stand up.
Penn.
Dr.
And
Penn? Dr. Penn?
let's see.
For dealing
We
with
listen
Sarah?
to Lauren Grace from
yeah.
San Antonio, Texas. Backbox Pinball Podcast. That's a new one that is done by a woman. So obviously I'm slightly biased. I like the women's perspective. And all of the ones that have been previously mentioned, we listen to as well.
Okay, and Jeff?
Not to just kiss up to everybody sitting at this table, but no joke, they are the people in this room, and including Joe and Head to Head, are my go-tos. Specifically because they talk about a variety of topics. There's a lot of podcasts that I listen to that will focus just on collecting, and I'm gone because I'm not a collector. I like hearing people talk about game strategy. I like hearing people talking about games and just having fun, and that's what everybody at this table does, especially this one. She's out of control. Just great to listen to. So these really are the top 4 on my list.
Why Mrs. Pin is so amazing is because of the shirts that she made. First of all, Ron, stand up. Look at this crowd.
Oh, yeah.
The swag princess here. And also, too, just every time I listen to Mrs. Pin, for the very first episode, she's talking about Dr. Pin watching, I think it was TPF, and watching George Gomez. Who the hell is this George Gomez guy? and she's getting into it and trying to, I don't know if it was you liked pinball or you just wanted to, okay, what does Christian like? And I want to be part of that.
Sure.
And then you instantly fell in love with it. You were like really, and you wanted to learn more. And it reminded me of when I first really got into pinball and just was like, well, yeah, every time you have an episode, it reminds me of something like that. And now you're explaining games and you're understanding things, and it's innocent. It's fun.
beautiful.
Please don't ever change. Mrs.
I
Payne.
won't.
Thank you.
Don't worry.
I didn't get a shirt.
We were just talking, we need like a
I
poll,
just,
a Parsons shirt.
I just said you were my go-to.
You want a drink, Jeff? Would you like a drink?
Yes, please. Could I? Thank you.
I got your
I know,
shot.
it's true. No, well, you do have like the normal shirt. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
That's-
You were one of the first people to have those.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
There you go, Parsons.
there you go. That should help.
Yeah.
Now, I think we should identify these other podcasts. So
Much better now.
can you summarize what you're doing, just quickly?
Well, George here started the Classic Pinball podcast. He said, Dave, this is a really cool idea. He came up with this idea for from a collecting perspective. But let George.
Hi, my name's George Jasic. Actually, this was all born out of trying to get Dave on other people's shows and coming up short. So finally figured out that there's an idiot-proof podcasting software that somebody like me can use. And I started putting together, what I call a podcast, nowhere near as professional as the people on this dais. I do listen to everybody here. With the exception of Jeff, because I didn't know of you, Jeff.
Well, hey,
But
that's fine.
But I listened
Move
to,
down the bench.
No.
No shirt, hasn't listened. I get it.
I mean, there's only so many hours in a week, but Dave always says, how the hell, I'm retired. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of tournaments on Twitch. Probably know a lot about most of the people in this room. So it's a lot of fun. I'm happy.
And you've
So
done,
far with
done
what
all
we've
of
done.
one podcast so far?
The intro, which was basically
Okay,
to get us on the map,
1.2.
one to get us going, and we just did 2 hours recording in the bar of everybody who won ribbons for the tournament. So
Oh, right, yes.
Cool.
Okay, can you pass that to
So-
Dr. Pin?
that's where I come from.
You're a guest sometimes on.
Yeah, I'm Christian. I'm sometimes on my wife's podcast, Mrs. Pin's Pinball Podcast. I think I'm part of the reason she got into it. She kind of goes after any new thing in her life at 100%, 110%, and this kind of took off, and I've enjoyed the ride. So thanks for bringing me along with you, and you're definitely my favorite podcast.
I didn't have a choice, but that is so sweet.
Give me that cup back. Give me that back.
That's adorable.
Joe, what's up?
Joe Lemire. I've recently joined Head to Head podcast.
After being
which-
on mine several times, by the way.
Yeah. But unfortunately, Martin asked me first.
I know.
Head to Head was always my favorite podcast, and we met at Pinburg, and we did an episode, and it came to my attention that I talked to Martin. Martin was thinking about quitting, and I refused to let him quit. So he was like, "Fine, well, we'll have a episode and see how it goes." And me and him hit it off. Just we get along so well, and everything.
And how
is-
many podcasts per year does Head to Head put out, would you say?
One a week.
Weekly.
Yeah, one a
Every
week, so
single week?
52.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Monday at 8 a.m.
Every Monday, very
Like
efficiently.
clockwork.
I should be recording right now in a little bit soon. So
Yeah.
so it's been great. We've gotten I think 8 episodes now, and
So
it's
if you
just
can pass that microphone back to Chris back there.
You know about Joe.
You don't want to
could-
say anything?
if Joe
Tell
didn't,
us.
if Joe didn't step up, Head to Head wouldn't exist anymore. So I'm glad you're doing
convincing
that,
him
Joe.
to the best of my ability.
Has anybody else?
Steph.
No,
Stephanie.
Hi, what?
what podcast do you do or help with?
I'm co-host of the Riptide Pinball Podcast.
Mhm. And how often does that come out? Per
All
year?
the time, right? Like it's.
Eventually. It happens eventually.
Okay, so periodically then.
Yes.
All right, any other, I think we covered all our podcasters in the room with, Chris is retired now from whatever. Okay,
Yeah,
all right, well, thank you, so we know who's who here. Now, I noticed an interesting thing here which fits in with something that I've been seeing, also on online forums. I am better able to do online forums than podcasts because I don't have a long drive where I can listen to something running around all the time, running shows like this. But I saw something about labeling Pinside as, oh, tournament people don't hang out here, and they're all over on tilt forums, and there's like the, I think of it as the two worlds of pinball, and we just had that come out that George and Dave are going to that collector's world, and then there's a tournament player's world, and that it shows up in podcasts also. I think most of you guys probably, if I gave you that dichotomy, you might say you're in the tournament player's world. But what do you think? Is that the way the whole pinball hobby enterprise is, that there's tournament players, like they'll come to this show and we have to drag Ron away from the tournament long enough to sit him down here in seminar room because it's, anyone ready to go on that one? Jeff?
Well, the thing is with that, you had one part before Pinside, there was RGP, which is Rec Games Pinball, which is where everyone hung out. It was a completely open forum, and it was kind of the, you weren't into pinball unless you were the hardest of the hardcore. When Pinside came along, it was more like you have your maybe not the hardest of the hardcore. I don't know how to say it in the nicest way.
Right, and at the same time, the whole point system and IFPA rankings, that all was hardening the tournament world, I think.
Well, there's a lot of tournament players like, that's all, they'll go to a show and never see any of the show because they're in the tournament area the whole time.
That's what I'm talking about.
I tried never to do that. I mean, but there's definitely different segments. There's people who just like to collect. There's people who like to play in tournaments that don't own any games at all. There's people who like bling, put as much bling on their games as possible. Maybe don't even care how they play, just as long as they look incredible. There's all kinds of different factions in pinball. But I would say you would probably say Tilt Forums is more like the hardcore, or it is more primarily tournament players. In Pinside, there's a lot of useful information on Pinside, but there's also a lot of drama on Pinside that people try to avoid. I mean, RGP probably had less drama, and that was a completely unmoderated forum, as opposed to Pinside, which is moderated.
So Ron's been in a long time. I've really only been
Too
in
long.
this pinball thing for 5 years. For you, a couple of years. I don't know about you, Jeff. How long?
About 10 now.
10 years? Okay, so it's about 5 years for me. 20? There you go. So
51.
You
Pin-
win. You
I
win.
went to Pinside first and was fascinated. I still think it is an amazing website. It's really well done what Robin does. When it comes to the forum, I've often called it drive-by shooting because it's people that don't have a face to their name and they can say whatever they want, and there's some awful things on there, and kind of that's the joke of creating Pinside PD, was to be that, pardon me, asshole that you see a lot on Pinside. Not that Pinside's bad. I love Pinside, so it's kind of, I wish I maybe didn't call it that name. But anyway, the joke of Pinside PD is it's everything that's bad about Pinside. It's everything, it's the complete opposite of me. Whereas Tilt Forums, and I'm in this group more of the tournament player, and that's kind of what I like in pinball. But I agree with Ron. It's funny, there are people there that will never see anything other than the show, other than the tournament. I like to do a little bit of everything. I try to secure my spot if I can in the playoffs, in the tournaments, but you're missing out if you don't go to a show like this and check out these seminars and TPF and Expo and all the great shows. You're missing out if you're not checking out the wonderful speakers. I mean, look who's here. I mean, Steve Ritchie and Christopher's got a seminar tomorrow. These are important things to check out too, because I still think there are more collectors, more fans than there are tournament players. So
For sure.
I'm conscious of that when I'm doing my show, of try to cover everything off, not just tournaments.
But don't you think tournaments are becoming bigger and bigger as we move forward?
IFPA has grown. They're at over 70,000 right now. When I joined 5 years ago, I was player number 23,000. So 3 times seconds. The 24-hour sanctum. Jim Swain is here right now, and Jeff, you'll be there as well too. and Ron. The 24-hour Sanctum sells out in seconds. 100 players over in Connecticut
24 hours.
to play 24 hours of
Why
pinball.
are we doing that? Why?
It's insane.
Why are we doing that?
I'm flying from outside Toronto. For me to go there, it's probably going to cost me about $1,500 to go and punch myself in the face to play 24 hours to get magical Whopper points. But it's so much fun.
And Jeff Parsons, I mean, you made this remark just a few minutes ago about your podcast, you're interviewing players, you're talking about players.
Yeah,
and
it's
so kind of the opposite of these guys with the
Yeah.
collectivists.
I'm not a tournament
Yeah.
player, but I love listening to these.
Yeah.
I love the competition.
Yeah.
I love listening to guys say, oh, I did this or I did that. So
yeah.
look forward to listening to you.
Well, thank you. Well, and with all respect to people that are collectors, it's just not my thing. I don't own. The only game I have in my house is borrowed, and I don't own a single one. Someday, getting a house with a big basement, hope to fill it someday. But in the meantime, tournament play is what I love to do the most. Even just casual play. I honestly don't like playing pinball alone. It's no fun. It's much more fun when you punch up a 4-player game.
It's more fun to compete.
More fun to compete. I think that might be a.
Does anybody play dollar games here, like just for funs with your buddies and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
So that
I'm up when we're done this, because it's so much fun, and the trash talking that goes on there. That's what pinball was
Yep.
for me when I first started playing as a kid.
Yep.
And yeah,
And when I played as a kid, I did it all by myself. But when I got older and started getting into the competitive scene 10 years ago, when I just discovered there was one, I'm like, this is awesome. There are people that have the same passion that I've had since I was a kid, and you can actually play and maybe even win prizes and stuff. This is great. So that's kind of the way I focus. And as far as you mentioned, Pinside and Tilt forums, I check out Pinside. I mean, I use it to promote the podcast because that's there. But I can't even go there because one of the best things about this hobby is meeting people and having fun with people and making friends. And there's none of that happening there because it's that whole anonymity of the internet. And some are
Twitter's the same.
Yeah,
Right?
Twitter's the same way. Yeah,
Facebook's the same.
it's
not so
you-
much.
There's no filter. You just let it all out. And
RGP was not though.
right, yeah, I remember RGP. I kind of lurked, but it was a nice conversation there for the majority of the time. And it's just you don't get any of that on Pinside. So I stick with Tilt forums.
RGP is still there, by the
Yeah.
way.
Oh, yeah.
It's hidden.
I was there at the founding of RGP,
Oh,
which
really?
started in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Sarah, do you have an opinion? Do you think there's two worlds of pinball and you have to pick your side?
No, you definitely do not have to pick your side. I think anybody can play in a pinball tournament, which is how my husband and I got into pinball. It's great. I mean, there's so many facets of pinball. You can be a collector, you can be a player, you can want to just go and have fun. It's so much more accessible than people think. And going on Pinside, I love Pinside because as somebody who is new to the hobby, you can find out a lot of good information on Pinside. And I stay very far away from drama in general in life, but I think that Pinside is a great source for figuring out how to fix something on your pinball machine or figuring out where you can find things that might be difficult to find. It's kind of like a networking.
Exactly.
It's kind of nice for that reason, but I think that it is tough because there's so much negativity and really I don't watch the news because I don't like to see the negativity. So the parts of Pinside that tend to be more negative, I tend to avoid.
I'd like to point out that be careful when you put somebody into a box too, because somebody might do something that you don't like. It may be something horrendous. We've all made mistakes.
Yeah.
Every single one of us in this room have made mistakes and will make other mistakes. The key is, do we continue to make those mistakes? If we learn from those mistakes, okay, that's good. And I think that's what we want. We want people who make these mistakes to have some sort of redemption.
Humility and grace.
I agree. And the problem with Pinside, Facebook, social media, all this stuff is, again, that putting somebody in a box. They are this person because they did this one action. That's really
That's harsh.
That's not fair, and
It's also amplified too.
it's disgusting. There are some good causes that are brought up by some social media concerns, but I'm not a big fan of somebody is guilty until they're proven innocent. I think that's disgusting, and that's my biggest problem with social media pin signs like that as well, too.
Are your listeners a community unto themselves? You think, Ron, I think with your mail-ins and your...
The mail ball bag?
Yeah.
The mail ball bag. Yes, the
get,
mail ball bag.
a group
As
that's
Bruce would
sort of
say.
your group?
Yes, I'd say so. I mean, I find that when I'm on, even when I'm not on my own stream, like when I was at the New York City Pinball Championships and I'm doing some commentary for like the Classics tournament, there's people in chat like, do Stewie, do voices, do this, and it's like, oh, so they must listen to the show.
Do Stewie.
Do Stewie.
Yeah, do Stewie. Give me
Hey,
Stewie.
what? You want me to do him on command? Bite me. You know, I'm home. I'm in New England. This is where I'm from.
Is that the best cartoon voice you can do?
Pretty much, yes.
All right. So it's the Cartoon Talker Invitational we have up here.
He's one of the best.
Yeah. Anyone else want to take that question about community? Sarah, I think maybe you. I mean, you keep telling us XO
What was the
like
question?
you think we're your fans or followers, or you are leading us in some way, making a community out of listeners.
It's about fans, Jeff. So you may not have any.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Damn.
Okay, true or false, all right, about Ron, all right? His friends call him stink face. True or false? False. He doesn't have any friends.
Oh, very good.
You want to drop that, Mike?
I want to know how long you've been saving that one up for. Did you write
months.
some down? Did you like take
I've got
notes
more.
anything?
I've got more.
So
Don't you
excited
worry.
about those.
Years of stand-up comedy. It's all in the,
my
it's all
gosh.
right there. Back pocket.
You must have been a horrible stand-up comedian.
Ooh, okay.
I'll save it for. Oh wait, you're on my trash talker team. We can't talk trash to each other.
Not to each other.
No, we gotta save it up for everybody else.
We'll have our own.
What does Petey see in you?
I don't know. I'm so sparkly. That's what it is.
Dave, the community, going to shows like this, and this is my first time in Sturbridge. You've been here before, I assume.
Yep.
Have you been here?
Ron's been
Yep.
here every year.
So this is my
Yes.
first time, and when people come up to me and like, oh, I listen to your podcast, and I want to know where they're from, and because I've never met these people before, it's fascinating. It really is. It's humbling, and again, right at that moment, I'm more interested in who they are, what's about, and I usually bring out my phone. I'm like, tell me about you, oh, Dave. Tell me about you. You should do a podcast, okay? And Dr. Dave, I already know who Dr. Dave is, but I've never talked to him before. I'm like, okay. So I see him here. I'm like, hey, give me 3 minutes or whatever, and we'll talk. So that's kind of, I want to know a little bit about everyone and pass it on to other people that listen to the show, and that's what the show's about.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I saw when I did the questionnaire, I found a contrast between your podcast, where you always are talking to other people, versus Sarah is very much a
Selfish?
a personal.
Sorry.
100% true. 100%.
It's all about me.
Well, in the zine world, it would be a personal zine. It's
Yeah.
just her rantings and praise or whatever.
There's room for everybody.
That's the beautiful thing. It really is.
It's just like the shows. I mean,
That right there. Yep. I don't want anybody. I don't have a favorite podcast. I don't have a favorite TV show. I don't have a favorite band. Oh, Led Zeppelin maybe. But I listen to several. Like I don't just watch one TV show. I don't just listen to one music. So it's not. There are no competitions between any of us or anybody else that does a podcast.
But I can only listen for so many hours a week.
Pick and choose. You know what I mean? Like,
Find what you like
if
and
you work
go
on
with it.
pinballs, it's real easy.
Oh, while you're working on it, while I'm tweaking my electromechanical leaf switches and.
a good point. Okay, I love. I'll use your show as example. Head. They're longer shows.
Oh.
So an hour and a half longer or something. I drive an hour and a half to work when I.
That's Derek also.
So
yeah.
that's a great podcast for me to listen to. Other people have quick commutes, so maybe a shorter podcast, and mine are super short. You know, that might work. So it depends where I'm going, how much time I have.
Oh, those 15 minutes they're great.
Yeah.
Just little
They're lazy. They're not great.
Wait.
I've run out of steam. That's all they are.
I'm trying to keep it
So
under an hour.
we have a couple broadcasters here. Do any of you guys say, I am going to cut off this show at a certain amount of time per episode?
Well, you just said an hour. When we started, the original idea was the episodes would be an hour. and that went in the toilet quickly.
We try to keep it to a half hour, and we're an hour.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, before we got used to it, I mean, the first few episodes were generally boring, I thought. They just weren't that good. So we got a little more comfortable with it. They just started going longer than I'm looking, and it's like 2 hours in, and it's like, there goes the whole 1 hour idea. And we were doing that like every week for 2 years. I think in 2 years, we missed 2 weeks. So it's like it's
That's
insane
crazy.
amount. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's
So
And what was that?
more
One of
power
the
to head for keeping the weekly mantle.
It's not the recording. I learned this from every one of you.
Oh, it's not the recording. Recording's the easy part.
Right. It's
It's
the
the
editing
editing.
stuff.
Editing.
and I don't know.
I have 8 shows I have to edit. I've recorded Mark Silk in February, and it's now going to be July on Monday, and I still haven't released it.
So you put stuff in the can and just.
It's not that. It takes a long time to edit because I don't know. Well, it's different for you because you record first person. You're right there, and then you put it up. I know Jeff does this. I know Ron does this. Definitely Joe does this, and probably Stephanie too, as editing is an issue. When you're on Skype and you're interviewing somebody, I know Jeff and I will agree, I want the quality to be as good as possible. It took me a long time to release my pin site. Derek's over there. It took me a long time to release my Pintastic episode because I had a problem with my mic, and I'm like, do I redo this?
No.
Or do I just put it out? So will people be okay with that? So I take a bit of pride in that. And the editing too. So I will interview somebody, no names. I'll interview somebody who stutters, let's say. You'll never hear a stutter on that show.
I'm the same way.
Ever. I interviewed Daniele Acciari, who is one of the greatest players of all time from Italy. Italian is not his first language.
Italian? It's not his first language? No, it is.
I would hope not.
Another shot.
Try again.
It's not, actually. Pig Latin was. Anyway, the point is, English wasn't his first language.
There you go.
So I cut out a lot of the how you say, all that kind of stuff, because I want to make it sound. But that, so if I record
That's the
Danielle,
problem.
if I record Daniele and it took an hour to record that, Ron, help me out here.
5 to 1.
3 to 1, 5 to 1.
Well, we had an episode where I wasn't even on because they didn't record me. And the entire episode was Bruce and Scott, from Allentown, basically insulting me, and all my comebacks are not on it. So it's just a dead air, and I had to somehow splice it together to something listenable. It's usually, for me, it's double whatever it is. So if we record for 2 hours, it's going to be 4 hours to edit.
You
And
were
it-
like a
it-
ninja then.
And it depends.
Sarah, you don't have that.
No, you don't.
Do you? You just
kinda
here it
go.
is.
Well, you know, I mean, let's be real. None of us get paid to do this.
What?
So,
No.
at least I'm not getting paid. Is somebody paying you?
None of you are
dollars.
carrying ads. That's one thing we always four have in common.
You guys have radio DJ voices, and I am a stay-at-home mom. So it really, for me, is I want to get. Ooh, what's that?
Nobody gets paid for this.
There you go. And this is my first dollar. Maybe I'll have to frame it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, for me, it's I have less, I want it to sound good, but my idea of good and their idea of good is very different.
That's my problem. Is I want too good. The broadcaster in me who does this for a living edits every day and
Yeah.
edits. You have a question? I listen to you. Yeah, I know. You have to. I live with you.
On the Q97.9 every morning.
Power 97.
I talk about you.
Oh,
Well, hey,
Joe-
it's all nice stuff.
Joe has a question, but the reason that we care so much about the editing is once it's done, it's out there. You can't go back and fix
Yeah.
it. So do it right the first time.
I've literally I've recut questions. I've redone things. I take out every pause, breath to trim it down so it moves smoothly. And since with the morning show that I do, I'm constantly looking at a clock, and I've gotten to the point of doing it so long now. It's like I can just sense the time something is running, and so I've been able to time out my shows for about close to an hour just by doing it for so long. And I want to keep it at that hour because if I edited any more than that, it would just be daunting. No joke, I probably editing between cutting out all my stuttering, guest stuttering, music I put in, sound effects that I put in, bumpers, this sort of stuff. It's probably, I would say, an 8 to 9 hour edit for me. There's a lot to it. I process the audio so it has a level audio and boost. I do a lot of work to make it sound good because that's just in my brain. It's what I do for a living, and I want it to sound good.
So what episode was everyone's worst edit?
Everyone's worst edit. Oh, mine was when I had. Well, you've experienced this. You've had a lot of guests at once. I had 4 guests plus myself, and I record. If you don't know anything about it, everybody is on a different track in the editor. And when you record over Skype or whatever you're recording that's over the internet, there's a delay, and you have to match it all up so it sounds smooth. So I constantly shift things so that everything lines up, and I ask a question, they've immediately got the answer, where really it was 4 seconds before I heard the answer. So that takes a long time too. But in the end, when I put it out there and I listen back to it, it's like, okay, yeah, that's what I want it to sound like. That's also a reason I haven't done them as much as I get used to either, because it takes a long time.
Yeah, ours was definitely the Lyman episode.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 100, because that was probably our biggest accomplishment, because Lyman doesn't do that many interviews. I know he was on Head to Head afterwards,
We try to get him here, and he doesn't want to talk here.
he doesn't really talk much. He was on this old Pinball Topcast, if you want to go look at some of the original podcasts.
I was honestly impressed you guys got him.
But he came on, and originally we were just like, okay, we're just going to talk about like Data East and Williams, because we figured like you won't be able to talk about Stern. The first thing he says is like, no, talk about anything. Like, really? Okay, so he proceeds to go basically through his entire career from beginning to end, up to Batman 66.
Yeah.
Then he wanted to do some re-records, because he thought he was too negative about some certain subjects, so we re-recorded. And I challenge you to figure out where that is in the podcast. It's because there's a part where it's me, him, and Greg who was on there, but no Bruce. He was not on there. We had seamlessly cut that in the middle, the part he wanted to re-record. And if you heard Lyman talk, he does a lot what I just did there, that kind of thing. So I did a lot of cleanup. I wanted Lyman to sound as good I could possibly
And
get
he
him
takes
to
his
sound.
time with his answer too, so like
Yeah.
there'll be some pauses
I mean,
there.
in most of my editing, I mean, I edit the podcast the way I want to hear something. I don't want long pauses unless it's for comedic effect, like there, or something like that. I want.
That wasn't very funny.
Yeah.
You gotta try a different time instead of.
Dan stopped with me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's.
The dance.
Joe has been waiting longer. You have a comment on production techniques?
When it comes to like editing, like I remember like one of the first episode I did, like I had a mic problem, my mic wasn't very good. And he painstakingly edited out all, like it was a hum with my mic, edited out the entire thing so it sounded fine.
I hate people with bad mics. Oh, kill me.
Whoa, hate people.
Ready at that point. But then,
Hard take.
But like our Gary Stern interview, like it was about an hour and 5 minutes, and we only had to edit like 10 minutes outside of that. And then the other like the 3-hour episodes we do are almost non-edited. Like,
Yeah.
very little stated. We actually talk.
If you're gonna do a podcast, get a headset.
What software? I'm new and I pick these.
Okay.
things. What does
Super
everybody use?
cheap here, because we're on a budget. I'm very cheap. Even with 29 games, I'm still a very cheap person. The most inexpensive way, frugal. You get like a
It
lot.
wasn't FARGPP, it was CARGPP.
Yes, you get. Who here would know what that means? So you get a like Logitech. It's like $19.95, $20 Logitech headset. You get them on Amazon. Get a couple of those. Get a little filter for the mic
But
part,
what software do you use?
and then I use Audacity because it's free.
Yeah.
Audacity's free.
Audacity's free.
And it's super easy to
And you
use.
use-
If I can do it.
Jeff has Zencaster,
Yeah,
right?
there's a couple things I use. For recording interviews, I use a service called Zencaster that I pay for because quality guy wants it. And what the interesting thing it does is, unlike Skype, it records all the people that you have in your group locally.
So first generation, you're
Yeah,
not getting it
you're
sound
not-
like somebody's on a phone.
Right.
Yep.
So most of us do Skype interviews,
Yep.
and a Skype MP3 recorder is also free. I cheat. I use licensed Adobe Audacity for my radio
Me too.
station.
I stole it from the radio station.
So, funny enough, what is today? Friday? Sunday, I do my classic rock show, and I recorded it in the hotel room last night on this phone using a Shure microphone. I sent in, Jeff will get this, I sent in just my breaks. Just in the Big Red's Retro Rock on K106.3, that was Boston and blah, blah, blah. Sent it in, edited it, that's the hardest word to say, edited it on Audacity, not Audacity, it's like Audacity, it's a little, you can multi-track, it's a little bit better, it's a
Audition.
Adobe
There's
Audition.
Audacity and there's
but,
Audition.
But the great thing about Adobe Audition is I have an old license because the new license sucks because it's the new license is it's kind of cloud-based. You have to ante up every year.
That is so Adobe. to
It
do that.
sucks. So I have an old one. Please God, don't let it ever die. And that's what I use. Yeah.
I don't know. The Zencast thing worries me. Just the whole like, yes,
No, it's good.
It's recording locally, so you're counting on their machines to not suck or have an issue. And I like total control. If I use Skype with MP3 recorder, I'm recording locally on my machine, and I can check it while it's recording to make sure I have everyone on there.
Yeah.
So
Well-
if it screws up, it's all on me.
When I interviewed Dave and Derek and Gabe from Pintastic, I could see the file go. That's on Skype. I can see I'm recording. Something switched. My microphone was recording through my laptop mic, not my professional Shure microphone in my home studio. Like it was like, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's my mic's right here, and it's recording on my laptop over here, and that's why I sound hollow and crappy. And I did that for 3 episodes in a row, including Daniele Achari, including Johannes Ostermeyer, the world champion who just won the IFPA 16. But it is the best 10 minutes of pinball. For those two, I'm like, I have to re-record it. I had theirs. I had to revoice mine, which kind of doesn't sound really great, but I had to do it. For theirs, their quality was good, so I thought, okay, I can do this. And it was time sensitive, right? Because the event's this weekend.
Any other production tips or things you?
Cluster
wish-
bucks are hard, very hard.
If you're going to do a podcast, just make sure you get a good, for me personally, get a good microphone, whether it's a headset or whether I use a Yeti microphone, and it sounds really good. And I think they go for, it looks like, it kind of looks like an old-fashioned microphone, but they make snowballs as well, but it looks like an old-fashioned, and you can change the direction of it too. So if you're doing a 2-person interview, you can have both sides of the mic receive.
Ooh, it can do that?
You can do that, yeah.
Oh
Ken
my God.
Cromwell helped you out. Ken Cromwell does special and lit. Very
yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And he helped out Sarah. He helped out Sarah
Yep.
with just I assume it was a windsock. So popping the P's. There's a diaphragm inside this microphone. So if I talk directly into this and I say P, you can hear that pop. So broadcasters talk over a mic and project, but that windsock kind of kills the letter B, the letter D.
Yes,
the
it's
P.
called a pop god.
Whatever it is. You can make it for 5 cents with
Yeah.
a
A stocking.
coat hanger
Yeah.
and a nylon,
Yeah, a stocking.
Yeah.
which I have several of. What? Who said that?
And that's what I have on my headset too. It's basically a glorified like pop guard. You just put it over the mic.
Yeah, it's very
It's like
important.
foam. Yeah. And if you're recording like if you're recording like 2 people like partners anything, it's really advantageous. Well, if you can record separate microphones so you can edit them separately. Especially if you end up talking over each other or something like that. When you're on a podcast with Bruce, you get talked over a lot, or if I talk over him, or if I'm laughing over something. So I use MP3 Skype recorder because it basically puts me on one channel and him on the other channel. So I can clean up both sides.
When you release it, do you release it in stereo? I release it in
Yes.
mono.
I do it
release
stereo.
in stereo.
Oh, you do. Whoa.
Yep.
I do in
Well, because
stereo.
I only release it in stereo because I have music in it usually. And
Yeah,
it's kinda-
Ditto.
And also because I pan I'm panned like 20% to the left, and Bruce is panned 20% to the right.
Okay, no, well, that's the right answer. I make sure I'm under 30 seconds because on iTunes you can do 30-second samples. There's a great episode of The Office where Michael Scott broke up with his girlfriend and he's sad and he wants to hear sad songs. He's on iTunes and he's playing a song and it ends because he didn't pay for the song. He just paid 30 seconds for the song. And he plays it again, and they go, "Why are you doing that?" He goes, "I just want to taste."
For me, I use a lot of pinball soundtracks from games for my. And usually I pick something that I'm talking about during the show, and I'm not too worried about the copyright on that. I mean, I don't think Williams or no.
I don't put it on
No.
YouTube. If you do,
No, yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
will get it.
YouTube may have an issue,
Yeah.
but if you're just putting it out yourself and you're not, especially if no one's paying, if no one's paying for it, it's not, it's under the radar. Like if anyone remembers, like, if you remember like this old pinball like DVDs, VHS tapes back in the day, they had tons of copyrighted material on them, and but they were sold basically for charity to support the Pinball Hall of Fame in Vegas. So, and again, if you're under the radar and you're not charging anything for it, no one's going to care. Like a lot of like the Stern stuff that's made, Gary Stern's not giving his permission for, like the old classic Stern stuff. Again, a lot of it's under the radar.
think of TNA. Think of the sound effects in that. Those were common for anyone to use.
They
And
used to Google,
Walking Dead,
What's
same
her
thing.
face? Google.
Sure.
Miss Google. Whatever is the
this
voice.
this guy right here, when we're talking about editing and production, I had dinner with him last night, Christopher Franchi. I beg him to do the super duper pooper scooper super extravaganza extra awesome podcast
Pinball show.
because he's a funny guy. He is my favorite artist, and even when he was on Slap Save just recently, that 10 minutes was so well edited.
You have
that
such a radio voice.
you need
It's amazing.
You need to do it, Christopher. you really do because it's very entertaining.
Good.
All right, good.
You heard it here first.
There it
all
is.
right.
There's the slam. There it is. I knew we couldn't get through this without one slam from Hey, where's your show?
Derek's recording this, so now this is out on the internet.
I know you love it. I appreciate that. Yep. You saw your less of the latest, right?
How's everyone in the back doing? I'm loving that Hartford Whalers shirt, by the way. A good buddy of mine from the 90s, Jim Samlack, played for the Hartford Whalers, and I love that team. Oh, hi. A lot of it,
Game audio.
a lot of it I get from Pinball Arcade. The majority of it.
So
Every
you
once in a
take
while,
it-
some of it I find on YouTube. Some people will have recorded a game and have. There's I think Black Knight 2000 someone's got the entire soundtrack of it on YouTube. Like perfect.
Yeah.
There you go.
You
We
can
did
find
this-
everything on the internet.
We did the same thing when we opened with, I think it was Dungeons and Dragons was our opening theme song for
And
a
I didn't
while.
even know that
we-
until all of a sudden I played Dungeons & Dragons for the first time. I'm like, oh wow, that's
That
where this
music
came from.
is kick-ass.
Steel Panther's way
It's
better.
awesome. But yeah, I just got that from the internet, or you could also just get it from PinMame if you just play the ROM and then you can get it.
I have done that a couple times, but that's a lot of work.
I enjoy. I didn't start using music until maybe a year ago, and now the music is a joke. When I use it, like when I talked about Pintastic, obviously I had Boston playing, and I used the song "Foreplay" a long time because it had been a long time since I released an episode. So there was a tie-in there, and I like to kind of use music as a bit of a. It's a joke to me. and
Should have used Dirty
some
Water.
people get it.
Should have used Dirty Water.
Yeah, that would resonate here.
Dave, what's up next?
Well, we haven't heard much from Sarah. We need to.
My comments after this are that these guys have a lot of technical knowledge that is incredible, but don't forget that anyone can podcast. So if you have something to say, especially about pinball, it's something that is very easy. I use my phone, a laptop computer. It might not sound nearly as nice as these gentlemen's podcasts, but anybody can do it. So
But that's what I like about yours. It's raw almost. You know, it's just you in the moment, talking with him, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
The girls come in, your girls come in and they just talk. It's great. It's just, it's so.
She swears better than the rest of you guys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That, by the way, that's one thing I should mention that a lot of people have asked. Why don't you swear? And it's like, well, he's gone now because I bored him. But my 12-year-old son was here a second ago, and walked out. But I listen to a lot of podcasts in the car. And if he's in there, I don't want him to be hearing podcasts that are doing that. I mean, if they want to do that, great. But I want mine to be family friendly. That's just been my own.
Mine
personal
is
choice.
not family friendly.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Don't listen to
Jeff
that when we're
Parsons
taking
and
the
I
car.
talked about this before, that just like broadcasters always know what time it is because their internal clock is so calibrated to real-time clocks, they also have their FCC filter on in
Oh,
their
yeah.
brain most of the time.
I
if not all.
never swear, but when I was with Martin, we just.
Well, yeah.
Came
but
out.
Yeah, okay, so it's context dependent
Yeah.
for some people.
You also
Sometimes
widen.
you just need to add it. It adds so much. I swear therapy is for real. That's all I
It
have to
does
say.
widen your audience though if you don't swear.
Now-
It
it
does.
makes it
It
so
does,
you,
for
you
sure,
can
for
Okay.
sure.
you can be played in more
What'd
places.
What'd you say? It widens your audience if you
I
don't?
think if you don't swear.
Okay.
If you're more family friendly,
For
I
sure.
mean, when you had Coast to Coast Pinball, he would always make sure he did not swear or bleeped out.
Right.
Like you'd have what's the guy's bare naked lady guy?
Ed
Ed
Robertson.
Robertson. You'd have him on and being like a music guy. Of course, he's dropping an occasional F-bomb, which we'd always bleep out. But
Okay. I refuse to swear on my show. Meet me out there. I'll show you every swear word there is.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm a prude by any means, but when I go on head-to-head or when I go on, I've been on Jeff's. Haven't been on this one yet, but I've been on Slam Tilt a few times. It's a big release because they have that. It's unfiltered, and you can be whoever you want to be. I don't swear for the sake of just swearing. It's kind of a cheap laugh sometimes. If it works, great. If not, that's kind of an old stand-up comedy rule, right? If you can get the joke without
you can be where
throwing
you
an
want to
F-bomb.
be. So on your show, it's fake, Jeff.
I just said it the other day. I just said I like what I do because it's to me different, and you get to learn a lot of different about all the wonderful people in pinball. But the fun shows to do, Slam Tilt, head to head, because you just
Let it fly.
you let the hair down, as they say, right?
Those of us that still have it.
It's good. But then, you know what, that's funny. I also wonder, because in the show in Pinball Profile, I'm doing the interviewing. I'm not offering any opinions or anything like that. When you go on these shows, you offer opinions, and I wonder if people want that or not, because you can get in trouble.
Oh,
right?
yes, you can.
You can get in trouble once you don't offer opinion. Well, that's what I said earlier, I mean, sometimes you make mistakes. I talked about that I wasn't, at the time, a fan of the TWIPY Awards. And I said it on Head to Head Pinball. Because I thought it made one winner and everyone else was a loser. But I went to Texas Pinball Festival. I watched the great celebration of that. There were no losers. I don't know why I thought that in my head. I didn't care. I never once talked about the TWIPYs. But I realized I'm missing something. I made a mistake. And I have no problem. I owned it to Jeff Patterson and everyone else. But it was more, not so much a mistake. I just didn't get it. I don't like those kind of contests and stuff like that. Because, like I said earlier, you don't have to pick one podcast. Listen to Sarah's, listen to Jeff's, listen to Ron's and Joe's and everyone else and Stephanie in the back. You don't have to have just one,
It's a beautiful thing.
Breaking news, by the
Kumbaya.
way. Breaking news. We may be doing a podcast with Head to Head if everybody agrees here on this table to do it.
Oh.
Wow.
Next question.
Coming soon.
Okay.
Although I can say about when it talk about like being careful what you say and not even saying the wrong word, even though you have no idea you said the wrong word, completely accidental, which I've had that happen, and getting messages from people that
You hate Jersey Jack, I hear.
apparently
You hate them.
Yeah. But like because we were talking about Spider-Man in the last episode. Yeah, and I
Excuse me?
thought Jonah Jameson, and I said Jenna Jameson.
Where was your mind at the time?
I knew who that was.
Uh-huh. You didn't know who Jenna Jameson was?
No, Joe
Really?
is Joe is
You
so,
must have seen it somewhere.
He's an innocent soul.
I have no idea who that is.
Oh, Jeffrey, who is that? I don't know who that is.
He's lying. He's lying.
I might have Google image search once, okay?
up, Dave?
I do want to point out, I find the slam tilt kind of interesting that rather than one host, you're selling it, at least to me, that it's a dialogue. So if I don't have someone to talk pinball with, I can just put that on and listen to two guys talk pinball, and you've been talking to each other for so long.
I mean, our show started because of actually, anyone familiar with This Flippin' podcast? Anyone else? Okay. So, I mean, if you want the most non-edited, literally just two guys talk and they just hit record for 3 hours and then just release it. That's it. And I listened to that. It's like, wow, someone could do a podcast like that. And it's like, Bruce would do that with me. Because, I mean, before he had the bar and he had a regular job, he had actual vacation time, and we went to he was the one I went to all these pinball shows with all the time. And we talked all the time. So there was never anyone else I was going to ask to be on the show. And I said, like, sure. So
Nobody else could do it. You guys are just you mesh so well because you're such polar opposites.
By the way, it's not easy.
it's not as opposite as you may
Well,
think.
maybe. Well, at least you present it that way, though, I think, in your show.
I am, yes. If you want a classic
Yeah.
comedy, I'm the straight man. He
Yep.
is the comedian,
Yep.
the goofball. And that's fairly accurate. But I can be goofy.
Well, you have chemistry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you can't manufacture that.
Do you have a question? You keep poking your head up there. You just want to show off that Silver Ball Saloon shirt, don't you? From East Rochester, New York.
Well,
Great venue.
What made
West
me
Commercial
bring
Street.
up that thing about the two of you there is the remark a couple minutes ago about it being fun, and okay, none of you guys are doing it for money. Just to double check this, do you ever feel like guilty? Oh, I've got to put out a podcast. It's been so long.
All
Oh
the
my
time.
God, I feel like that all
the
the
time.
time. All the time. I call it the podcast guilt.
I know it was 3 months, but I just put one out, all right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been trying to book the guy, and he's out there. I'm actually gonna grab my phone and sit down with him.
It's more so when we did weekly
Yeah,
that I would feel that. Now that we're not quite on a schedule, but I
Okay.
feel like we can't go more than a month without one, or maybe a problem for some reason.
I talked to Dennis Kriesel of the Eclectic Gamers podcast. He does a great show with Tony. And he was talking about how podcasters have burnout, and it usually happens after about a year and a half, and you see them kind of not do it as much. Jeff?
That right on
That's
cue.
right on cue,
Right
right,
on
buddy?
cue.
But I said to Dennis, I said, you know what? The worst thing you could have done is said, we're going to release every Saturday or such a time or Monday. That's the
That was
worst
so much
thing you can do.
pressure.
Don't do that.
No, it's so
You
much
know what?
pressure.
It's harder for you, and then you won't enjoy it, because if you have to do it,
It
it's not
becomes
as
work.
fun.
Yeah, it becomes work, for sure.
Because of that, because the head-to-head has to come out on Monday, we recorded it because Martin was playing in that tournament. We recorded on a Sunday night, and then he
Yeah.
got it out Monday morning.
And I give you guys a lot of credit for that. Anybody who comes out on a schedule, it takes so much work and a lot of dedication. And
But
Doing stuff like this,
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm gonna record, although now we have a plan. But
and people have lives outside of pinball. It's your kids come first, your family comes first. What? I have a life outside of pinball.
But I respect that the fans are just excited to get
For
that.
sure,
Maybe
for
it's on
sure.
a schedule, maybe it's on the Monday at 8 a.m. for head-to-head or whatever the case may be, but it's about the quality, not the quantity. That's very, very important.
And when I saw that, I've been following the podcaster channel on Pinside, and that headline popped up a new thread. I won't name the podcast, but the second part of their subject line was new episodes every Wednesday, and I'm thinking, boy, they signed up to make
Yeah.
themselves miserable. Maybe.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's the thing is, like, with our podcast, we found it best if we really didn't have much of a format. We'd have maybe a rough outline and we just go. And when you have Bruce on, he will say anything, and we'll try anything. And sometimes it's not funny, so you got to edit it out, or it's extremely offensive, and we have to edit it out or something. So I took it upon myself to clean everything up to get these episodes, and that was the best format. It's the most entertaining. It always worked good. After I got sick of editing, it's like, let's make this more of a format. Let's follow like an outline, and the episodes weren't as good. I mean, there was less editing, but they weren't as good. And that's kind of at the point that I said, like, yeah, I just can't do the weekly stuff anymore. And so now we're back. Now it's maybe twice a month, but it's nice. I mean, our last episode, I loved our last episode. We just went and we looked, it's like, an hour and 45 minutes in. It's like, man.
It was like the old days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like we were just recording for 5 minutes. Like, this is great. And it's like, okay, this is a perfect place to end it.
And it wasn't work. It was
And-
natural.
Until I had to edit,
Yeah,
but yeah.
Jeff.
I'd like to ask, and I don't want to assume that people in this room are listening to any of our podcasts or any podcasts, but what is it the people in this room want to hear in podcasts as it relates to pinball? And if anybody can step up, I'm just curious
Well,
because
we could try a few things, like who wants to hear news of the pinball industry? Let's start with that. 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4, 5, 6, maybe.
Steph does
Eight.
not know.
what about tournaments?
Tournaments.
What about events?
Oh,
What about game designers?
Yeah, interviews
this
with
is
industry
So what we're seeing is not everyone agrees on everything. So that being said, and I say this to anybody who's podcasting, don't think you're going to make everyone happy, because it's impossible to do so in this podcasting world. Do the best you can do. Some people might like some episodes, not other episodes. They might like certain topics, but
You have to do it for yourself.
that's
You
it.
have to.
Exactly.
That's it.
She
You have
nailed
to.
it. If you're not having fun doing it, you're not doing it for the right reason. Same thing I say about pinball. If you're not having fun playing, why are you playing?
there's always Bruce's advantage. He just doesn't care.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
doesn't care if you don't like him or whatever his
That's an awesome
opinion.
thing, though.
Stephanie got a question. Stephanie Guida, the Pinball Princess from Riptide. Hello. Nice pin, by the way.
any of the time.
You can't please anyone any
Yeah,
time.
I don't know.
That's a
He-
Bruceism.
Yeah, he has these Bruceisms, these things he said that just don't make any sense. And yeah,
But it does make sense. It
no,
does.
to him it does.
Yeah, it totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we know what he's trying to say. It's
He-
just
kind
Bruce.
of.
Do we, though?
Yes,
It's like Bruce language. You've got to translate.
that's literally his comeback. Well, you know what I meant, so it's good enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what keeps me going? And in this room, this man's been doing it
Does
the longest.
Fireball keep it going?
Fireball
Is that it?
keeps you going?
No, it's funny actually. Until this right here, I can't remember the last drink I had, so I don't even think I'm a boozer or anything. But I'm also not driving. I'm in Massachusetts. I'm like, you know what? I'm in a hotel room for 3 weekends. Let's meeting some friends. Let's have some fun. Anyway, this guy's been doing it for 3+ years. It's actually almost 3 years right now.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just under 3 years, and these people have come on recently. It's the feedback we get that kind of keeps us going. I think, if
Sarah, do you agree with that? You get feedback?
you get
I
a
get
ton.
some seriously amazing feedback. Really, I mean, you have to do it for yourself, but just know that people will tell you what they think, and you just kind of have to take the laughing approach to it, because, if you make a mistake, someone will email you.
Oh, yeah.
And they will tell you that you are wrong. And I am trying to learn more about the hobby, and so I appreciate that.
I might have emailed you once that you were wrong.
I think it's been probably more than once. It's all right though. It's okay, because I am wrong, but this is a learning podcast for me myself, and my podcast, the whole shtick is that it's for people who don't know anything about pinball.
Pinball for dummies.
Exactly, and
So you'd have to retire after you got too knowledgeable.
That's
Get
my
passed the
fear of
baton to
Sarah.
someone else.
That's my fear.
That's
It's
the
like,
thing.
where's that charm I love?
But she has. If you listen from the beginning, the very first show she did, it almost was like, is it really a show or not? Are we really doing this? It was basically mocking Jack Danger. And
100%.
100%. And then it just snowballed into your own thing. And you went from somebody who knows nothing about pinball to you are all in. And that is what I love about your show,
Oh.
is watching you go from point A to point B, and look what has happened to you.
We're playing in the tournament over here, and somebody, no names, sends me a picture of, hey, look who's beating you, schmeff, or whatever. I'm just like, so she's now all in.
I mean, I have to represent myself, and when I'm in
God.
22nd and he's in 24th, you better believe I screenshotted that shit. I mean, it only lasted like 5 minutes, but whatever.
Listen to this guy, the new guy from On the Block on
new
Head-to-Head
guy.
Pinball, right? I mean, Head-to-Head Pinball is a great show. It's been nominated for the Twippies
It
twice,
was.
all right? I mean, they have, it's like Van Halen of podcasts, all right? They had David Lee Roth, and then they had Sammy Hagar, and then one of them left, and they brought in Gary Sharon, all right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow.
I like to
That was the worst mic drop I've ever seen.
I like to read our reviews, things like boring, total bore fest, avoid, long drawn out talks about tournament pinball, also makes up fake news. Same thing every week. Every time Ron doesn't win a tournament, it's something other than his personal skill to win the tournament.
Hey, at least you got reviews.
I don't read.
What are reviews? People review you?
One of our first ones. These guys are new to podcasting, but they just drone on or not exciting to listen to. I can't do it. Sorry, guys.
Someone called me schizophrenic.
Yeah, he might have been
once.
right. That was like one of the first ones. No, these are reviews anyone can read on iTunes
Bipolar?
or now Apple Podcasts.
Did you have a comment? You have the mic.
I feel a little uncomfortable.
Uh-oh.
Both on-air personalities,
Yes.
both love Twisted Tea.
Yes. We like Twisted Tea, yes. We both like Fireball.
Weird.
We have a lot of similarities. Both
Brothers
have the same,
from
both have the
another
same
mother,
name.
Michelle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? It's scary, really.
I don't know. I just feel uncomfortable.
Okay. Would you like to date Jeff?
Same name. Same name.
Joe, did you have a witty rejoinder?
Well, I was just meant to like both when it comes to like getting bad feedback stuff like that, like especially from a tournament player's perspective, when you're giving opinions, like you said. Now I'm a Jersey Jack hater because I gave my opinion about Wonka.
Oh, most definitely.
State,
You hate it.
even though it was I bought a Jersey Jack as my first moonbox pinball machine, so it's like
But it was Hobbit.
I know the worst one.
Yep.
Perfect.
Oh, so you hate that too? No, I get what you're saying, Joe. Joe, on the last episode of Head to Head Pinball, was talking about Willy Wonka, and it's a theme that he loves because he loves the movie. I love the movie. You'll hear it on Pinball Profile. I talked to the 3 kids that were here at the show, and it's great that they were brought here for that. But there are things that we would have just, I guess when we knew Willy Wonka was coming out, we thought, oh, will it have this? Will it have this? And it didn't. And I understand why, because licensing didn't, like the estate of Gene Wilder wouldn't allow any of his singing in the game. So it's not that Jersey Jack didn't say, here's some money. They said no. So, but
There were
because you
restrictions.
said that, and that's an honest opinion, people were like, oh, I think he means he hates Jersey Jack, which is not the case at all. I love the game's great. It's just we wish
The expectations were a little.
we could wish that about any game, that
For sure.
this had this and this and this, right? But
The opposite problem of having licenses that you would come into games with expectations of
yeah,
that license being in the game into some.
who's played Willy Wonka? Everyone here? How great a game is that? It's pretty it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
I couldn't make an opinion.
Oh, go ahead.
The flippers couldn't hit things, and everyone. We played the same. We played the same Willy Wonkas. We played the same one at New York City Pinball Championships. The bottom left flipper was like, it literally wasn't even strong enough it hit the ball. It just went.
That's a voltage issue. I was talking.
No. Here's the thing.
They can fix it.
We brought this up on the podcast many times. It may be a voltage issue, but something with their system just does not take low voltage well. It never has. All their games. I've been to every expo since 2004. I played every Jersey Jack game. When they have it in the seminar room, like when they're revealing it and they have it plugged in here, like when I played Dialed In, when I played Pirates, it's like, yeah, you can hit everything. It's great. Then they bring it into the main hall, and they have Eric Minier there, and he's cranking up all the way up the power, and you can still barely hit stuff.
Great, Ron. Good take. Who here has pinball machines that they play in a great grand hall with hundreds of other games? Anybody? No. Not pandering. The point is, when you're playing it at home, it's a little different.
It's
Now I
different.
know.
Well, my other point is you have brand new Sterns that are in the same power situation, and they may not be as strong as they were if you were at your home, but they're strong enough to hit all the shots.
I heard a neat thing today on American Pinball because I like that Oktoberfest game a lot. And I was talking to Joe Balser, and he was saying that when the ramp is up, on the left ramp of Oktoberfest, please play it if you haven't. There's 6 machines out there. When the ramp is up, the voltage changes. The code actually changes to make the voltage on the left flipper stronger. When the ramp is up,
Right
and they go
flipper.
under- no, the left flipper.
Right flipper.
Well, both.
It's the right flipper.
Okay. Well, they changed the voltage in the code. I think that's pretty cool because
Yeah,
that's the
It-
biggest ramp.
It does
in all
work,
pinball.
too. It does work.
That's
It
so
does
cool.
the right flipper.
So the issues that you may have, I think, are easy fixes. They just and they'll get there.
Yeah. I don't know if it's an easy fix. I think it's the base operating system that they're using because they're using all Williams parts for the flippers. And
This suddenly
Sorry.
became a
Oh,
podcast.
that sounds like a
Sarah, what do you
podcast all of a sudden.
Well,
Now they're filming all this, and they're going to think I hate Jersey Jack now.
Mrs. Pin, we want to hear what Mrs. Pin has to say about this.
I mean, flipper strength is seriously high on my list of important things. But
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think that one of the things that drives me crazy about pinball is that so many times things are put out and things are released and they're not done. I mean, what if I gave you a pie and I only cooked it halfway and then you had to wait for the rest of it to be cooked? What?
I'd eat it.
But I think that there's always this hype of
Yeah.
needing to see the newest and needing
That's
to
the
see the
thing.
greatest and they want to get it out, which I respect, but I wish that sometimes they would wait a little longer to just get it right.
Well,
The-
they can fix that. People just don't buy it until it's ready.
They do it now.
I know, but that's annoying.
Okay.
See?
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying.
When Oktoberfest came out at Expo, there were 3 games. That's all they had from American Pinball. And some of the shots didn't work. It was hard to go up the Simpsons side ramp, if you'll call it that.
Yeah.
It was hard to stick it in the scoop because the flipper was so strong it would hit it and come back out. They went back and changed that from the feedback they had at Expo. And I just said to Joe Balser, I said, it's kind of neat that, you want to hit it out of the park right off the bat.
Yep.
You
But
want
you
to have
need
that pie full
feedback.
cooked. But they got some good. You
I have
got
the best
that.
idea ever.
You got that.
Uh-oh.
You got that feedback, and they went back into the drawing room and changed it. I don't know if they've done that with other games.
They haven't.
No,
they've
I don't
done
think they
that.
have, but
They've done
American
that.
did.
I'm
Hobbit.
just going to put out there to the cosmos that perhaps they should just fly an amazing panel of podcasters out to test all their games.
that's what I'm
Who
hearing.
thinks that's a terrible idea?
That's a
I
terrible
think-
idea.
No, that's an amazing
Terrible idea.
Free airfare, hello.
But they've done that. Hobbit had the original art that was at Expo. Everyone hated it, so they changed the art.
Yeah.
They've
Let me
had.
flip that around,
Yeah, you
though.
can.
Again, you can't please everyone.
No, you can't.
This is the real reason these guys do podcasts is because they have all these critiques of the manufacturers and they want to get their bigger amplified voice out there, hoping that they'll influence the manufacturers. True or false?
False.
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 I don't talk about them.
They're-
I could care less.
I don't think they're listening to us or care what we
No.
think. I think it's an informed opinion for the most part because I have a Jersey Jack game. I
best
have
one.
Stern
The best
games.
one.
I have a spooky game. And so when I say things about man, it's kind of weird that Total Nuclear Annihilation doesn't have any connectors. They really went old school. They just soldered everything directly to everything. Okay, or I brought this up in the last episode. Jersey Jack, they use connectors for everything. Great. They tie wrap everything together. So if you need to remove a mech, you have to cut all the tie wraps to get the mech out, which is kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. But just little things like that I don't know anyone would care about, but we mention that kind of stuff on the show.
What did you think we thought?
He thought
That
that we were trying
part
to
of your
influence
motivation,
others.
you get energized to do your podcast because you get to right those wrongs and
No,
avenge-
I'm no different than anyone in this.
Do what
room.
I say.
just-
Okay, you guys ever
sir-
do avenging anything?
That's
Yeah.
right.
They don't listen to us. Are you crazy?
No.
No,
No.
They
not
don't
a
care.
chance.
They're smart.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, would you call up somebody at Stern if you had an engineering question of why did you do it this way, you guys? And would you, or email
I might
somebody?
have engineering questions, yes.
Okay, so you could take that alternative route. If you wanted to make Stern change their ways about some little engineering detail, you could try going that way.
I've had less issues with Stern. I think some of the other companies, like I think Jersey Jack has issues just because their entire development crew is in like Chicago, but the factory is in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So it's you have separation there. I think the one thing Stern has is everyone is in-house at the same facility all the time.
Okay.
So they have less, like a lot of the other companies, like I know American Pinball, they have Joe Schober does programming, but he lives in Virginia, so he's doing it remotely. I just think, and I think a lot of that, Bowen Spooky, he's kind of, I mean, he has a regular job. He's more of a consultant. He's not doing code. He's going to come in there and say, this is what the rules should be, and someone's going to code it. And
Deeproot has John Norris living in Vegas, Dennis Nordman's
Oh,
in
yeah, they have people
Chicago,
living,
Barry
yep.
Elsler is in San Antonio. So that's, they've got their artistic work, and in Utah, David Thiel is in the Northwest, so they've got
Oh, yeah.
people all over. But that being said, as I talked about earlier in this, I did my radio show from this thing. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be in the physical room. You can do it anywhere, and that's just the way
I would still argue
things are.
having them all in-house promotes a better team environment,
Communication.
and especially speed. The speed that they can
Yeah.
fix things, that
But
they
it's
work
not
on
always
things.
ideal. It's not always ideal.
It's not always ideal.
So
We had Oren Day on, who worked for Data East and Sega back in the day, and he had moved to, I think, North Carolina and was working there for the last couple of games remotely, which I was surprised they let people do that in the 90s. But
yeah.
Well, so now you're telling them how to manage their companies even.
I'm just saying my opinion. Which you're filming, and I'm sure they'll all be shown and hate me.
I'll tell you one thing companies should do, and
Okay.
all right,
Oh, boy.
I think
This is the
you'll
first
agree.
step.
You'll agree. This woman right here needs to be creating toppers.
Yeah.
For,
I'll agree with
for
that.
companies. Have you seen what she has done? Right? Oh, thank you.
She could also start a trophy.
Ridiculous.
And
business
shirts
as
and
well.
apparel.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, she
So
did
I'd
some-
like to see that
she
actually.
did trophies for us.
Yeah. There you go.
But it's
San
more of
Antonio.
like a fun thing, you know, like that's the whole thing.
You can make bank on this.
I
Maybe
don't
you
need
are making
bank.
bank
I'm
on
married
this.
to a doctor.
Whoa! Wow.
I make the big bucks staying at home with our
Face
kids.
is as red as his hair.
What was that Kanye song, Gold Digger?
That's my theme song, actually. It truly is. It's a bit of a
Wow.
joke. It's a bit of a joke.
Okay, do you have any opinions where you do want to change the world of pinball in any way? And do you present them on your podcast?
I don't aim to change pinball. I love pinball. I feel like the pinball world is ever changing, which I think is one of the greatest things about it. I don't feel like I need to try to change the companies. I don't even try. I don't care. Maybe I should. Maybe I
It's not just
should.
the companies, show administrators like me, or the tournament administrators. Do you have messages for them that you're?
No,
trying
I
to
mean,
get out there?
I think that everybody in pinball is very open and very receptive for the most part. And I think that if you go to somebody and you say, hey, I'd love to see this or I'd love to see that, if somebody emails me and says, I really want another stupid song about rehabbing pinball machines, then, I'll catalog that and I'll try to make people happy. But ultimately, it's their business and it's not mine. So I can comment on it and throw my opinions out there, but ultimately they're just that, opinions. I don't know if they change something about pinball then that I want to change or I commented, then awesome. But I don't think that I have like the voice to change flippers.
I would argue that change is already happening.
Oh, yes.
As we saw the earlier seminar, we had Tim Sexton here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone that is getting younger, and the older guard is going to be, and they know, and George Gomez knows this. He's getting more and more young people at Stern for the next generation, the
Steve
next
Ritchie
iteration.
has to talk about, I'm not retiring because people
I'm never retiring, never.
presume that
Yeah.
he might be. Jeff Parsons, do you dispense any
I
opinions?
totally, I was pretty much, Ron said what I was thinking, is that there already is change going on. I mean, you mentioned, Tim Sexton, not only younger people, but people that play pinball, that know what players want in a game more than designers and engineers and that sort of thing. The other thing that I think is changing as well is how many people are playing pinball. It's grown so much and it still continues to grow. So as long as we can keep that going, this hobby's going to be around forever. And we had our time where we're like, oh, this is over, when Bally Williams said bye-bye, but it made it through yet another one of those downturns, and hopefully it will stay that way.
There was even, you've been to every expo
Yes.
ever. I've been to every expo since 2004. And I'd say you definitely saw, like, when I first started going to the expo, I was probably one of the youngest people there at the time, and I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, and going to the shows now, you see more and more younger people, which is the best possible thing you could hope to see, in my opinion.
It's because of the younger people that have discovered it. They kind of like, not to pigeonhole there, but I think a certain class of millennials like retro things. And when they discovered this, it's like, well, what's this cool thing? And they have latched onto it and honestly saved the hobby. Got a whole younger generation into it, and it just continues to grow. Now, Joe's, and not the exact same example, but you were a video game player and then kind of discovered pinball, and you were just fascinated by it. And I think the more people that do that and can see what pinball actually is and what it does. Like my son, for example, he's just now started, he's 12 years old, just now starting to play, really getting into it. And, obviously I had an influence on it, but he's really pretty good for his age. And I think a lot of it is because he's a video game player and he's got those reflexes playing Fortnite and everything.
Dexterity.
And he's beating me in league right now. And so it's people like that can
Shameful.
find. Yeah. And he's my son. Yeah, I know. I think it's just a great, I don't want to say a gateway drug, but I mean, it's similar to that. It's like video games is kind of the jumping off point to get to pinball. And the more that happens, the better things are
Like,
gonna
who's
get.
the world champion right now?
Yeah.
17 years old.
Yep.
Jeff?
Ostermeyer.
I don't know if it's so much a do you have a question?
Yeah, is there a social media aspect of your podcasting? Like, if your downloads zeroed out and, all the reviews were bad, but you continue to make podcasts and put them up there?
Well, I was just talking to somebody about this just recently. I've done 200 plus episodes of Pinball Profile, and not every episode is for everyone. And I make sure everyone knows that, because I will interview people that I'm not interested in that topic, that game, that event, that tournament, or that person. That's fine. Go to the next episode. But when I released an episode, I've had two. I released one where I interviewed Gene Simmons, and I wanted
Greatest episode ever.
Gene Simmons is a wonderful man. Anyway, I interviewed him because I had him on my rock show. Kiss was playing at a concert nearby. I've had him on a couple times. I tried my hardest to get him to talk about pinball. All he wanted to talk about was this vault box is fantastic. It's all my crap from 40 years and all this garbage. I tried, but I put it out there anyway. Another one was Ted Nugent, right-wing, crazy maniac. But I had him on my radio show because he was playing a concert, and I thought, well, damn it all, there was a Nugent pinball machine. Can I get him to talk a little about that?
He was reserved on that episode.
Anyway, well, I cut stuff out.
Oh,
I
okay.
cut stuff out. He went off on Hillary or something like that, and I cut it off. I'm like, okay, I'm not telling you what side I'm on or anything like that. But whenever I interview somebody, anybody, it's not an endorsement of that person. It's just their side. Because as we did that little survey earlier, what do you want to hear? People want to hear different things. And that Ted Nugent pissed a lot of people off because he's a madman. He's crazy. And it didn't talk about pinball. So why am I doing this? But one thing that did happen from that is the late David Taylor from Alabama contacted me. I'd never met this man before. He had seen me at tournaments and said, I just saw a Nugent concert, loved him. And I actually liked the music too. And he said, it was a great concert. I love that interview, blah, blah, blah. And we got to know each other really, really well and became one of my greatest friends in pinball, and sadly passed away last fall. Got sick real quick. I never would have met that guy if I didn't interview Ted Nugent. So I'm glad as hell I did. And the great thing about Pinball Profile and these podcasts and everyone else is the pinball community is made up of so many different people. Just even in this room of 30 people right now, we all come from different walks of life. And we never would have met any of each other if it wasn't for the common love of pinball. And that's my favorite thing about why I do what I do. It's giving back. It's something I love. It's something other people love. Not always a home run, but once in a while, pretty good. That's
I'm getting all choked up over here.
I know, jeez. Pass the tissues.
Personal, like for you, it's, you know, since you're able to put yourself out there, then you can make personal relationships with other people that way.
I love people, and I'm open. I love everybody until they give me a reason not to love them. You know, as you get older, you know, you want, you know, as you're on the back nine, you want things to, you want to make amends with everyone. You want everything to be good, and there's just no room in my world for hate, right? So that's what we talked earlier about, the social media stuff. It's just like it creeps me out. I don't let it bother me. I don't let it, because.
But the podcast as a medium is very impersonal. Like I can download podcasts and nobody knows who I am downloading your podcast. Like we didn't make a relationship. I went to iTunes.
Sure.
But a lot of people do. Like a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot of people do. A lot of people reach out. They do, and you know, when you make a podcast, your email is connected, your name is connected to it. It's easy to track people down. I mean, I've met people all over the country just putting it out there. So, I mean, I think a lot more people than you would think would, you know, reach out and connect with you just because they hear your podcast and, you know, they think you're funny or they like pinball a lot or you say something that resonates with them and they shoot you a message, and it's awesome.
I was honestly surprised when I went to Pinburg last year, the amount of people that came up and said, hey, I love your podcast. And I had no idea who they were, but they introduced themselves for the first time, and it wasn't until then that I realized, okay, well, there's people that are actually listening to this. I mean, I'd get emails once in a while, but honestly, I don't care how many people are listening. You know, if somebody's out there and enjoys it, that's enough for me. I'm not looking for big numbers. I'm just, like I said, and I think what we all do, we do it because we enjoy it. If somebody else enjoys it, all the better. That's a bonus.
Well, you got final remarks, Ron, or anyone?
Well, I just found
Closing
it,
up here?
being in pinball for a long time before we did the podcast, I was not ready to be recognized. Let's just say that. Because I go into a lot of shows and people will be like, oh, I love the podcast. And it's just weird for me. I mean, I always tried to stay in the background. I had a whole like YouTube series of like pinball machine stuff that I had out there for years where I would do like home game room series, like film people's game rooms, film locations, and I would never be seen on camera on purpose. You would just do a walkthrough. So that people recognize me was weird.
But that's not why you do it.
No. I would prefer not to be recognized, honestly, but, you know. Bruce, on the other hand, would love to be recognized, I'm sure.
And easily is.
Easily is.
All right, well, you're all being recognized tonight, and I think we had a little sample of what you're like on your respective podcasts, plus handy tips. Chris, if this inspire you to get back in, you're thinking, oh, I do love this after all. No, okay.
Do it. You were talking earlier about what people like about, you know, people like tournaments, people like this. I think the most important thing about what you guys do is that people like your personalities and people like your takes on things. Because listening to your podcast is like meeting you at a coffee shop once a week. So if you're talking about tournaments or you're talking about an artist or a designer or whatever, it's just nice to sit down once a week or once every 3 months.
I knew, yeah.
You saw that coming, right?
Because I work all day at a desk, and I have my own office, so the more podcasts, the better. And if it's an hour long, hour and a half long, that's awesome. 10 minutes, whatever. On to the next one. It's just nice to sit down with people once a week and hear your takes on things. And like I said, it doesn't matter what it is. It's your take on things that I'm interested in hearing about. Because I could give a crap about tournament, but
Sure.
if you're talking about it and you're giving me your take on it,
I will say Bruce is wrong. Teal is an excellent color, like teal.
You know, it's Jeff and I know this.
Beatles.
Jeff and I know this from radio, and Jeff has done a morning show for years and years and years. People are used to listening to the voice, and they feel they really know you because they wake up in the morning with you, they have coffee with you, and stuff like that. So, in a way, podcasting is like that in radio, too. So, yes, we're shocked, impressed, flattered beyond belief when people come up to us and say, thanks for doing your podcast, we like listening to it. I'm sure there are others that are looking at us like, that Teolis is an asshole, or whatever, like that. Exactly.
There you go.
Right?
Such
But
simple, though.
but it makes you happy. I mean, it's not why we do it. We don't look for the recognition. It's super, super sweet. And Sarah was the one who kind of asked, I think, I don't know if it was Gabe or Derek or Dave here at Pintastic, hey, what about a podcasters panel? This wouldn't have happened if somebody didn't pipe up over here.
Nothing to do with this.
You did.
No.
You did. And then I saw Derek at, he sent me an email, said, hey, would you be interested in coming to Pintastic? I said, sure,
You're
$3,000, I'm there.
lies.
And, no, but we met at TPF, and I said, you know, I'd love to come to Pintastic. I feel like I'm an honorary, where the hell did my bag go? I feel like I'm an honorary New England person because, first of all, it's a great state and area, but
Yeah,
there
booyah.
time to represent, eh, babe?
What's this? What's this?
Manny PL, what's going on?
Ooh, that's a nice one. Flip with
So thanks for
honor.
having us, Derek.
Hopefully Narragansett won't sue us.
Yeah. I have one
I would have
quick.
brought mine if I had known this was a thing. Well,
Shot.
rocket. Yeah. Somebody take a picture.
Now you got to drop your eyes and you're all good to go.
Yeah,
Drop my R's? Oh, my God.
I have one more thing. I don't know if anyone would be interested in this. I figured I'd bring this along. This is a $100 off a game purchase with a Pinball Star. Does not include spooky games, I guess, because they can't do a spooky game. So it would be
Nice.
like Wizard of Oz, Dialed In, Willy Wonka, Medieval Madness remake, Attack from Mars remake, Monster Bash remake, Houdini, Oktoberfest, Thunderbirds, no, P3, or the Vertigo or Vortex Virtual Pinball. I don't know what that is. Here's the catch. It's $100 off, but you have to be paid in full by June 30th, which I think is tomorrow or the next day.
Sunday, yeah.
What's the year?
No, it's something I wanted. Pinfest. I don't know. Would anyone be interested? Otherwise, it's just going to be a piece of paper that I'm probably just going to throw out. $100 off a game.
Come see Ron.
I got 2 days. Okay, I thought I'd try.
All right, so we can't even bribe our audience. Well, we'll probably do this again with different podcasters every year. So I want to thank all the podcasters up front, all the podcasters here. And please, all of you, keep plugging Pintastic New England on your podcast.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Can't believe you guys stayed all this time.
Who's playing dollar games? Let's do this.